Welcome back to Stay in Your Lane. I'm your host today, John Mahle, brought to you by Triple T Transport. Today we have a new guest, special new guest that I've been speaking with for a few weeks now, Thomas Mella, president of Sightline Freight Partners. With Thomas on today's podcast is going to be the often imitated, never duplicated Joe Lombardo, Iggy Avenue Associates. Thanks for being on, Joe. Thank you, Thomas.
Well,
At this moment in time, I'd like to give Thomas the floor to share. I know I've gotten into some of what Sightline does, but I would like Thomas to share with everyone what his background is and what he's passionate about and what Sightline brings to the market. So go ahead, Thomas, and thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, John. So I started Sightline 3 years ago because a lot of shippers and 3PLs wanted to implement technology, but didn't have the technical expertise or project management resources to do that. And so we bridged that gap primarily for 3PLs and freight brokers to get the technology they want and need, even if they don't necessarily have the integration or product or project management expertise. So we function as an extension of our team to deliver technology solutions.
Wow. I would say that probably is a large percentage of the market that maybe is a little bit behind, but capable and able of spending revenue to get caught up fast. So you got to be pretty sharp.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a team effort. So we have 4 integration engineers to do the heavy lifting there, and then 3 project consultants to help make sure we deliver on time and in budget. Team effort.
Very good. All right. Well, I've heard good things. You come highly recommended from some of my friends and colleagues. So, I definitely appreciate you making time for us to share. One subject I would love to talk about today and get your perspective on is API real-time rating. It's a feature that I think a lot of people are enamored with, and we're trying to understand and look at it from every perspective. So, if you'd like to share with all of us, and Joe and myself especially, and our viewers, what your perception of it is.
Yeah, you bet. So for a little bit of context, for freight brokerages out there, you may have gotten a request from a shipper in partnership with their TMS to provide quotes via API. So everyone is used to the load board where you log in. Sometimes there's hundreds of quotes out there and you've got to manually type in a quote, look at the market, understand what you want to quote, and get through that list or as far through that list as you can to potentially win some freight on the spot board. Now, I do want to separate that type of API or automatic rating from what I call a closed room real-time rating. And those closed rooms are for freight brokerages when they get invited to provide quotes before it goes to the spot board. And I think that's a really important early delineation to make is between auto quoting on an open spot board with every provider, and often it's just the lowest cost. And there's a lot of players out there looking to drive revenue, and that's not always profitable. But those closed room boards from providers like E2Open and their real-time rating product, and Blue Yonder and their dynamic pricing discovery product, those tend to be smaller groups of carriers and brokers providing those, but they are all provided in real time, typically, or really all through API integrations.
Okay. All right. That makes perfect sense from what I'm seeing. Joe, any thoughts?
uh, besides the rating, Thomas, and what other applications that are you primarily is Sightline primarily involved in?
Yeah, so we do technology implementations, and for context on my background and a lot of the team's background, well, we came from a company called Forkites, which I think most folks are familiar with, and spent over 5 years there. And so we do a lot of visibility implementations, Macro Point, Project 44, Trucker Tools, and of course Forkites as well. And then with the recent fraud in the market, we've done deployments with solutions like Overhaul and Devices to help prevent theft, and then also with Highway and RMIS. Huge fan of what Highway's doing in the market, and I think they're really blazing the trail. But then also, there's standard integrations between new TMS providers, who brokers are using, and then also automation using APIs. So I know it's a lot there, Joe, but it's really, hey, is this a monotonous task, or is there an integration needed? Or is there something that we need to level up in our operation using technology? And we'll do everything from email and front to brand new TMS deployment.
Do you do any business with shippers directly?
Yeah, so when I started Sightline, I thought that that's where we would spend most of our time. And today, all of our customers are 3PLs or freight brokers. So not yet, but I'm certainly not opposed. I worked with a lot of shippers during my time at Fortnite.
Okay, thank you.
And I know Nestle well.
So to kind of dumb this down for the people listening, pretty much anything that's an integration needed from any system, whether it be tracking, etc., to whatever the system we have, you're able to fill and bridge that gap.
You nailed it. I think that one thing that is kind of our chocolate and peanut butter is it's easy or fairly easy these days to go and find an engineer. But that engineer likely doesn't have two really important skill sets. One is it's understanding what the use case is and the value looking to be delivered. And then the other one is making sure that that project is managed effectively. There's lots of stakeholders in these projects. And so being able to communicate about how the technology works and the value that you're looking to drive with that technology is really just as important as doing the coding work on the computer.
If not more important.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Good question, Joe. Thomas, so you drew my attention with the closed room scenario versus the auto quoting and playing a number, right? So, talk to me more about what you consider a closed room scenario.
Yeah. So when you look at a spot board today, pretty much every provider who's a part of that shipper's network can go into that spot board and submit quotes. What we're seeing is the shippers are saying, hey, I have some providers that maybe I don't have the strongest relationship with. And even though they're in our network, they're maybe further down our routing guide. But I do have providers that I want to give more spot freight to that I think of as trusted providers before it goes to the spot board. So it's almost like this new layer in the routing guide right before it goes to the spot board. And what they're saying is I want a spot rate effectively. I want it in real time before I put it to the spot board. And I only want to offer it to a handful of my providers that I know are high quality. And so we're seeing TMSs release that as functionality more and more as kind of, again, that middle layer in the routing guide before the spot board.
So this is maybe from what you're describing and from what we're seeing, the last ditch effort before going to the spot board for a shipper.
Yeah, and the other component to it, I think that's important to call out is there might be freight that would have gone contracted before that they're actually almost putting into a spot type environment because they think maybe the market will be better there, but they don't want the downside of the spot market with lower cost providers. They still want that quality service, but they don't necessarily want to do a contract on that lane. And so that's, again, it kind of gives, from a shipper's perspective, and I'm really curious on Joe's view of this, is it gives a shipper kind of best of both worlds. I get high quality service with providers I trust, but I can also get close to market rates, or if they're below where I expected the contract rates to be.
Joe, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I definitely see a value in looking in anything that is a buffer between the shipper or broker and the spot market. I like this idea of the closed room. I think it, like again, approved suppliers, approved brokers or carriers. So I think I see a lot of value in that because again, people that you have a relationship with, you probably have contracts with, and all that good stuff, insurance. The thing that I question, and I always have the challenge to me is, you sit down with the carrier, you negotiate rates, you come up, with all this stuff. We're going to we want to be a good partner, shipper of choice, carrier of choice. And then you start throwing his lanes into a closed room or some of his business. So I guess that's why I guess I always sit back and say, okay, what am I really trying to do here? I mean, I could see doing this maybe on lanes that are under 50 loads a year, or a lane that just pops up out of nowhere. But for your everyday business, I kind of question the intentions of both parties here.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly, Joe. Thomas, let me paint this picture because I see where Joe's going here. If you have contract carriers and contract pricing, and that fails, but you don't want to put your foot out in the spot market where the sharks are, right? So you want to look for another option. We'll throw another tool in the toolbox for this. But I think for me, personally, professionally, I want to say I'm concerned. I don't know that the motives are genuine. Okay? I mean, if you're a real partner as a shipper and you're working with real partnerships with carriers, when you need help, they're going to step up and help you because you're a good partner if they can. If they can't, you're going to have to reach elsewhere into your network for capacity. But I guess, I'm someone that subscribes to the shipper to say, I want you to avoid the spot market at any cost, because yes, you've been successful the past couple, 2-3 years in the spot market pricing being lower than contract pricing. But I don't know that that's going to be the case moving forward. At some point in time in the next 12 months, we're going to see the market shift to where spot market is going to surpass contract. And I hate to say it, but if you're talking about regular volume, regular lanes, regular, there's no commitment that you're making in the API real-time rating tool. So if I'm a shipper and I have a closed room with a handful of providers that are, deemed good service or adequate service, etc., that I build this closed room for, what is the investment to establish the API real-time rating, number one? And then what is the motive of the shipper when the rates are put in there? Are they going to see their handful of real-time guys and pick who's the cheapest? Because that to me doesn't sound like a partnership. That to me sounds like our motives are lowest cost first and foremost.
Continue watching on the next episode of the Stay in Your Lane podcast.